is get up and go. Just do it. Just go for it. This last week, Sharice and I went to Hawaii, and praise the Lord. And in Hawaii, we just decided to get up and do things. There was one morning where we were like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. And we decided, you know what? Let's go ride on a helicopter. So we did it. We rode on a helicopter. How crazy is that? And then we decided, let's not have doors on the helicopter. So we rode on the helicopter without doors. And then there was an emergency landing, and it was awesome. And I'll have to tell you about that story another time. And then we decided we wanted to just go kayaking. So we got up and found a kayak that this random local guy had. And so we kayaked, and and as we're kayaking, these dolphins came and started swimming next to us. And they were coming out of the water and spinning and doing their things. And I gave him a finger gun and tried to pet him, and he was like an inch away from me. It was crazy. Anyways, you just got to do things sometimes. Get up and go. Get up and go. And this summer, I really want to emphasize that of what can you do to get up and go. How many of you guys were at Wonder Woman last night? We saw Wonder Woman. Woo! We had 30 people out there seeing Wonder Woman. If you haven't seen it, don't worry. I won't spoil it for you. But I am going to tell you a little piece about it that you see in the trailer, so I'm not telling you something you don't know. But here's something that inspired me about Wonder Woman. I never knew her origin story or what was her back leading up to her becoming Wonder Woman. But essentially, what it's described is she was molded from the dirt, clay in the ground, and then God breathed life into her. And I was like, well, there's a biblical parallel if you ever saw one. And he breathed life into her, and then she was going to be a tool that was used to bring hope and goodness into the world. And here's the thing. All throughout her life, she knew that she was destined for more than what she was doing. She knew that more was placed in her, and so she did something about it. She began to learn how to fight and how to wield and how to do different things. And finally, there came a point in her life where she had to make a decision. Was she going to play it safe living on her island, or was she going to get up and go and save humanity? And I think there's a little bit of Wonder Woman's story in each of us. Because you will grow up, you will learn there are certain things that are placed deep within you. And you have the choice whether or not you're going to live on your little island, playing video games, doing whatever it is you like to do. If you're going to play it safe there, or if you're going to get up and go. As I think about my own life, I think about the many times where I did not get up and go, where I stayed on the sideline, where I saw someone in need and decided not to act. I was too concerned with my own thoughts, with my own agenda, with my own feelings. And the more I grow, I've said this before, the more I grow, the more I realize that the interruptions are precisely what we train for. The interruptions that are inconvenient, that are not fun, that take our time, it is precisely those moments that we train for. You see, Wonder Woman, she didn't prepare to be a warrior just so that she could sit and eat grapes all day. She prepared to be a warrior so that one day when the battle came, she could fight. Now, when the battle came, it wasn't convenient. It wasn't at the right time for her. She hadn't had a chance to get a boyfriend and go off and get married and have 3 kids. And then after I do all that, then I'm going to do what I've been called to do. She was just living her life, and in the middle, she had an interruption, and she had to make a decision. Am I going to act, or am I going to sit here and wait? And the more that I realize that in my own life, the interruptions that come, whether it's the homeless guy on the side of the street, or the random person walking saying, hey, Pastor Scott, as I'm running between buildings to go fix something. It's those interruptions that I have trained for. Those interruptions, that's why God has prepared me for such a time as this. And that's what I want you to see today. There are interruptions that happen every day in your life. Are you awake enough to see them? Or are we busy sitting down, eating grapes? Not that there's anything wrong with grapes. Here's a verse I want us to read. We're going to track through the book of James. James was one of Jesus' followers, and he writes about putting your faith into action. And here's what he says. He says, don't fool yourself into thinking that you are a listener when you are anything but the other. Act on what you hear. Those who hear and don't act are like those who glance in a mirror, walk away, and 2 minutes later have no idea who they are or what they look like. Keep that up for a second. Act on what you hear. Those who hear and don't act are like those who glance in the mirror, walk away, and 2 minutes later have no idea what they look like. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but like you woke up in the morning and you looked at yourself and you're like, whew, okay, you need to take a shower. You need to do something. Get the sleep off your face. And so you do yourself, you get all dolled up, and you spend all that time preparing you. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you guys, you know what I'm talking about. Preparing you. And you go out in the day and you know what you look like. And you go throughout the day. But then, all of a sudden you're in the bathroom, you're washing your hands, and you look up and you realize, when did that zit come on my face? How long has that been protruding? You know what I'm talking about? Have I been the only one? You know exactly. Some of you guys are like, I am not raising my hand, Pastor Scott, at that, but you know what I'm talking about. Here's what it's saying. You call yourself a follower of Christ. Do you look like a follower of Christ? We're going to go through 3 little things. The first blank. You can listen to Jesus and not be changed by him. It's the first thing this verse brings out. You can listen to Jesus and not be changed by him. But Pastor Scott, I go to church every Sunday. I go to church on Wednesdays. I even go to Jeremy's Bible study. I know everything. I know the 12 disciples. I know the 10 commandments. I even go to Christian school. You can listen to Jesus and not be changed by him. Satan listens to Jesus a whole lot. That doesn't mean he's changed by him. Caiaphas, the guy who sentenced Jesus to death, even prophesied that Jesus would be an unforgettable person in their history. Little did he know what he was actually prophesying. Paul had an encounter with Jesus. He listened to Jesus, but that didn't change who he was. It took him actually acting on what Jesus said that changed him from the inside out. You can listen to Jesus and not be changed by him. The second thing, your true self is hidden behind your pride. You know, I almost softened this point up a bit. I almost didn't go that far, and I was going to say your true self is hidden behind like a mask or, whatever. But then Jeremy popped into my head, and this was last night that I made the change. Jeremy popped into my head. He was like, Pastor Scott, how are you going to go easy? You got to give it to them. I was like, all right. So your true self is hidden by your pride. Here's what I mean by that. We put on this facade of who we're trying to be, of who we want the rest of people to see us as. And at the root of pride is selfishness. And with our selfish desires, our own thoughts, our own ways, we play it safe. We don't act out on our faith. At lunchtime, you see the person sitting over there in the corner alone. They're okay. And you feel that tug, but nah. Or maybe it's at home, and you feel like you need to stand up for one of your siblings and pray for them. But nah, that's weird. It's my brother, and so you don't do it. Or maybe it's you know you need to do something because something's right. But instead of following through with that, you back off. And you let someone else take the blame. You let someone else do what you knew you should have done in the first place. And so we let this selfishness, that is pride, come before us. And that separates us from what we're supposed to be doing. Your true self is hidden behind pride. It's like looking into a mirror that's cloudy. You can see a dim shape. You can see what your shape is, but you can't tell the real you until you start breaking those things down, until you start giving up your selfishness. And that's what Christianity is all about. That there is a real you underneath there somewhere that God has created you to be. And somewhere along the process, we have hidden it to try to preserve ourselves, to try to take care of number one. Pastor Scott, it's science, survival of the fittest. I got to do this to survive. I got to be cool to survive. I got to have this face on to survive. And what Jesus says is actually false. That needs to die. You need to give that up. Your opinion, your value, the things that you thought were important, that 4.0. Now, I'm telling you, it's good to study hard and get grades, but when your identity is found in grades, even that is a selfish pride response. When your identity is in Christ, not in what you can do, your true self is hidden behind your pride. Wonder Woman had to leave paradise to live into her calling. Jesus had to leave heaven to live into his calling. What do you need to leave to live into your calling? I'm going to say that one more time. What do you need to leave to live into your calling? Now, I'm taking extra time right here because I want you to think about that, and I want you to write something down on this piece of paper. Whether it's his name, and you need to write his name down that you need to leave him to live into your calling. Or maybe it's something that you spend way too much time on, Netflix, and you need to leave Netflix to live in your calling. Maybe not totally, but maybe just instead of spending 4 hours on Netflix a day, you can spend 3. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. You spend way too much time. You watched 2 seasons last night. What do you need to leave to live into your calling? This verse continues in verse 27. Here's what it says. Religion is the word, but I want you to understand religion in the context of worship. Worship that is pure and undefiled before God. So honest, innocent worship of the Father is this. This is what he wants you to do. The ultimate thing of like, God, just what do you ask of me? He says this. Visit the orphans and the widows in their affliction and keep yourself unstained from the world. Hold that verse up. You can memorize this one because this is a good one. Essentially what he's saying is help those who are in need and honor God. Another way of saying that, love God, love others. Now here's the deal. You can't love God from the sidelines. Because how would it feel if your parent, whoever takes care of you, said, oh, Johnny, Susie, Jack, Joe, whatever your name is, I love you. Good luck with life. And they went to sleep, and you went to the counter or the cabinet, no food. You come back, Mom, where's the food? He said, oh, good luck. I love you, though. Go back to sleep. Next day comes time for school. Hey, honey, I love you. And they say, but I don't have any clothes to wear. Literally. I'm in rags. They say, oh, good luck with that. I love you, though. But Mom, in order to study, I have to get books, and I have to get a pencil to write on. Oh, I love you. Good luck with that. You see, love without action doesn't make any sense. Love requires action. James is all about this. Now, it's not saying that you have to be good enough for God because you can never be good enough for God. What I am saying is when you fall in love with God, as a result, you will want to do things. When you love someone, some of you guys know relationships are starting to start. When you care about someone, you want to do things with them, for them, because you care about them. How many of you guys are at school and you ever saw one of your friends being picked on? Now, how many of you guys get this thing of like, that is my friend? Like, I will not allow this. I played rugby, and there was one day where in practice, it was like a miserable practice, and we had to do fireman carries. Fireman carries where you pick someone up over your shoulder, and we had to run the distance of the field. It was about 110 yards, go back and forth. And I was doing it with this guy named Boris. Boris was this crazy Russian guy, but he was totally awesome. And so Boris and I, for like 45 minutes, were like running, carrying each other. And we were like suffering together. And by the last one, I'm like dragging Boris along, and his face was in the mud, but we were in it together. That next Saturday, at our rugby game, there was a play. He was clear on the other side of the field. And one of the guys on the other team did something dirty. And he had kind of long hair. And he pulled his hair down. And the guy like basically stepped on him and sat on him. It was crazy. It's totally inappropriate. Inappropriate. I'm on the other side of the field. And I see this happen, and I was like, that's my boy Boris. You don't do that to my boy Boris. And so I just remember like this vengeance. It was number 2, and I start coming at him. This guy didn't even know what happened. So he's like being shady, like, yeah, trying to get Boris. And I came and just trucked the guy. I lit him up. This guy's like, doesn't even know what hit him because he's dealing with Boris. And then he realized that he had to deal with me. And so I lay this guy, and I'm not a huge guy, but when I'm like getting at speed, you know. Anyways, knocked this guy over. And it was like a movie moment. I came and I looked at Boris, and I reached out my arm, and he reached out and was like, brotherhood. And we got back up, got in the next play, and we scored. And it was amazing. But it was like, that was Boris. We had a bond. And because of that bond, I acted. This is what happens when you fall in love with Jesus. It causes you to act. And that's point 3. Love does. Notice I didn't leave a little blank in there because I didn't want you to miss it. I want you to, even if you write nothing else down, love does. What did Pastor Scott talk about today? Love does. Love does what? Exactly. Exactly. It is a verb. It is something you do. Love does. Help those in need. Love God. Want to know the best way to love God? Help those that God cares about. Who does God care about? Look around. When that person walks to you on the street homeless, think, who does God care about? When that person's sitting alone, when that person rejected, when that person is hurt, when that person that you're experiencing is annoying, inconvenient, not at the right time, I don't have enough money for you, I don't want to deal with that right now, you're too annoying, I just can't. Remember, love does. There's a story of a guy named Bill Johnson. Bill Johnson's the senior pastor of a church in Bethel, Redding. We have a picture of him. You might have seen him before. And worship team, you guys can start coming up. And Bill Johnson said that he was up there and there was a small kind of town and God just kind of placed something in his heart. So he told his leadership team and they started doing prayer walks around this town once a week for an hour. And they walked around this town for a year, not knowing what to do, but just knowing that God stirs something in us. We know you want to do something here. And after a year of walking around this town, God eventually opened some doors for them to talk with some community leaders. And those community leaders said, hey, would you open up a youth rec center? And they said, sure. So they opened up a youth rec center in this like abandoned gymnasium. And it was pretty shanky at first, but eventually they kind of got it going. They started inviting youth to come out. And at first the youth would come out and they were like dealing drugs and doing like super shady stuff. And eventually they got the youth to stop doing drugs and say, hey, just come here and chill. And then they started telling them about Jesus. And then the drug dealers started getting saved. And then that gym became a safe spot where people who were once drug dealers started saying, hey man, don't do drugs here. Do that on another side of the street. These people are cool. And so then they continued going. And over the next 5 years, they started working with these youth and these young people. And that town, which was once known for being a drug-infested, terrible place on earth, where people would come and had the highest crime rate in the nation, became a town with one of the lowest crime rates in the nation, with people getting saved following Jesus left and right. Now, it was all because there was a couple people who said, you know what, I don't want to just stand on the sidelines, but I want to do something. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have a plan. They just said, God, we're going to pray, and we're going to walk around this city and seek after you until you open a door. And eventually God opened a door, and as a result, this whole town was changed. As a result, hundreds of lives were changed. This is what it means to get up and go. Love is not silent. Love does. You see, these aren't perfect people. They were broken people. There are people with issues like you and me. But the cool thing is that God is the God of the broken. I want to take you back real quick to the Old Testament, to a man named Jacob. Jacob was the son of Isaac, who was the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of our faith, the one who God talked to and said, hey, through you, I'm going to restore humanity. And he had a son named Isaac when he was 100 years old. People don't have babies when they're 100 years old. But God said, through you, and it was a delayed blessing. Some of you guys are waiting on God, needing an answer. And God is saying, your answer is coming. And eventually Isaac came. And through Isaac, God began to work. And Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Esau. Esau was the first, Jacob was the second. Jacob was a liar, he was a deceiver, and he tricked Esau out of getting what he should have deserved. And so Jacob, as a liar and deceiver, he eventually got to a point where he wrestled with God. And in that wrestle, he repented and he said, God, have your way in my life. I surrender. And in that wrestle, God said, you will no longer be known as Jacob, but now you will be known as Israel. I am changing your name. I am reestablishing your identity, because the old you, the way you used to look in the mirror, isn't the real you. You need to put off your pride, put off your selfishness, because this is now the real you. Fast forward a few years. The Israelites are in slavery under Pharaoh, and God speaks to Moses. And God says, hey, Moses, I need you to deliver these people. And Moses was like, who, me, God? Who, me? I'm just sitting down eating grapes. I can't get in the game. I can't do that. And God says, you can and you will. Get in the game. It's time to get up and go. And Moses makes these excuses and he says, I can't. And then in Exodus 3, here's what he says. Moses is like, God, well, who will I send me? They won't ever believe me. They won't believe that it's really you. And God says, tell them this. And here it is on the screen. He says, say this to the people of Israel, to the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. He has sent me to you, and this is my name forever. You know, I've read that verse a whole bunch of times, but I noticed something a little differently a couple days ago. He doesn't say, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God of the broken. I am not only the God of the ones who are perfect. You say, God, wouldn't he want to be known as the one who is over the redeemed people, the nice people? Oftentimes, the deities are portrayed as people who only want to surround themselves with good, but this is not our God. God says, look, I am not just the God of those who have it right. I am the God of those who have it wrong, those who are broken, those who are defeated, those who can't. And so he said, I am the God of Jacob. And just like Jacob was a liar and a deceiver, he can still be used by me because he decided to get up and go. And that is what he is saying to you today, that you can get up and go. You don't have to live in the shadows. You don't have to live defeated, but you can have victory because God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and the God of the broken, and he can restore you too. So what I want you to do today, if you are broken, but you say, God, I want you to use me. God, I want to be the one who stands up and gets in the game. God, I want to be the one like Wonder Woman who goes and lives into my calling. I want you to stand up and raise your arms. And by doing that, you are signifying, I surrender. I do not want my old life. I do not want my pride to take over. I do not want things the way they used to be. But God, I surrender my life to you. I surrender who I am to you. You are my God, and I give you my life forever and ever.